And it's because of the expectations that we're putting on ourselves with all the should. I should be doing this. I should be doing it this way. And when you finally just be honest with yourself and you say, okay, this is my current situation and this is really what I want right now, the amount of relief and happiness that you open yourself up to is kind of amazing.
Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I'm a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you love. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. So I'm so excited. On today's Elevate podcast, we are going to have Laurie Gery. Laurie Gery is the founder of The Balance Plan and a personal and career growth coach and speaker. As a valuable leader in the team building space, Laurie has taken over 20 years of high-level corporate experience and transformed it into a simple, easy-to-learn technique for her clients to build successful careers and all-around fulfillment for themselves. Laurie, thank you so much for being here today. I would love for you to take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience and kind of give them a little idea of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me. So my name's Laurie Gery. I'm a personal and career growth coach. And my whole thing is helping people find fulfillment on all fronts. I think a lot of us get overwhelmed with trying to manage work and personal responsibilities. That's all been really magnified by the pandemic as things got even blurrier as we go through this point in time. So that's essentially what I do in form of group and individual coaching.
Perfect. Today, we're going to talk about the myth of having it all. And I really thought this was such a great topic for salon owners and hairstylists because there is this idea of what's expected in our industry. And I really loved that you touched base on helping people find fulfillment because I feel like so many people are searching for that and they just can't figure out what that means to them. So do you kind of want to go into how you kind of help people work through the myth of having it all and how you really guide them into finding what fulfillment is for them?
Yeah, for sure. And so I think the big piece that you said, that the key there is for them, right? I think what happens a lot of times is that people look to what's worked for other people, and then they become overwhelmed and frustrated when it doesn't work for them. And so you have to kind of go back a couple steps and take a look at your situation. I call it living where you're at and getting very real with yourself on what your current situation is. And so I think that's one. I think two, the biggest roadblock I see right away is, the giant laundry list, the Roman scroll list of everything that they want, and that it becomes a little bit frustrating when that doesn't fall into place all at once. And the reality of the situation is you can have everything that you want, but you're going to have to adjust on timing. You're going to have to adjust on priority, and you're going to have to be realistic about where you're at. And that's really where you start. You start getting really clear on what exactly is my current situation. I think, that's really a key to starting off on the right foot.
And I think too, especially in this day and age and in my industry and just in the age group of stylists that are up and coming, I think social media is another thing that really sort of blurs the line of what people want for themselves and what fulfillment is for them, because they see people on social media, quote unquote, happy with the things, and those things might not necessarily be aligned with them. And I loved how you talked about like people wanting it all right now. And that's not how it works. You kind of have to take one piece at a time, and it just kind of,
Right.
it's like a domino effect. Everything kind of falls into place. So what do you suggest people do when it comes to really finding what is their personal definition of fulfillment? And how do you help people work through this myth and this process of thinking that they need to have all the things in that very moment? It's like the instant gratification generation.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I always love the saying comparison is the thief of joy, because the minute you start on social media and don't get me wrong, I'm on social media as much as the next person and you can get some great ideas and some great tips. But at the end of the day, if you start to kind of build around what you're looking at that other people have built for themselves, it's not necessarily going to be the right thing for you. The very first thing that people have to get comfortable with is potentially saying no and going against the norm and being able to respond to people that say, well, you can't do that. Like, I spend a lot of time in the corporate world, and one of the things that always would come up is, if people wanted to leave work to take their kids to school or get their kid from the bus stop, and you'd have other people saying, well, you can't do that. And it's the first thing that you have to work on is asking yourself, well, why can't I? Right. Or how can I make this work? And start by actively thinking about what, it might be a small step of what's important to you to start to do, it's something to get off your plate, to free up time to do something that you'd really like to do. If that's putting an hour more into your business planning, then like, what are you going to give up to do that? So the very first step is getting comfortable that your plan may not look like everyone else's. And to be fair, like, you don't have to explain that to anybody. And you might get asked about it. My two favorite sayings are, that won't work for me, or this is what works for me. When I kind of get faced with people questioning why I'm doing or why I'm not doing a certain thing. And that's kind of all you need to be able to respond with and not go into an over explanation of things. I think people sometimes feel that they have to explain themselves a lot to other people, especially when you're in a work environment, or if you're trying to create something that's different from like kind of the acceptable industry standard, no matter what industry you're in, is to just be really confident about saying, this is what works for me.
It's so funny because I hear so many of my students and stylists and just salon owners. And one of the things that really detours them from like actually stepping into their power is saying like, well, somebody is already doing that. And they get distracted with, well, somebody's already doing that. So all of these people are really striving to be authentic and to be different. But in reality, they don't block out the noise, and they don't really take the time to get clear on what it is that they really want. So I really love that you touch base on that, and like giving people permission to do that. And I think a lot of people need the permission to say no, and they need the permission to not be like a cookie cutter version of all the other people that they're seeing, or they're even interacting with on a daily basis, like coworkers and even owners of, the businesses that they work for, or salon owners with other salon owners. People have to get comfortable with being out of the ordinary, or thinking outside of the box, or doing what truly aligns with them. So what are some things that you recommend to help people step into their power? Because that can be pretty scary for people.
Yeah, it absolutely can be. And I think there's a lot of fear involved sometimes in being the person who says no, or being the person who says, I'm going to do that differently. And what I always tell people is to start small and start. I have a couple, I just mentioned two of them, right? Like, well, that's what works for me. That won't work for me right now. I have a couple of set phrases that I use on a pretty regular basis, because I was the over explainer, right? Like, I was the over volunteer at school. If someone asked me to take on a project at work, I was right there, because I was a people pleaser, and I was petrified to say no to people that if they asked me to do something, I didn't want people to be mad at me. I didn't want people to think that I wasn't a hard worker. And so I really, really had to work at, taking a step back and figuring out how I could have kind of a direct and unemotional response to people and not feel like I owed them a long time explanation. So I think having a couple of phrases that you practice, and the only way you really get good at this is practicing. A lot of times people start with dumb stuff. I mean, I'll call it dumb stuff, but if it's something that you don't really care about, it's a lot easier to start to practice saying no and saying, that's not going to work for me right now, before you go up against, turning down a job that everybody thinks that you should take. And you know that in your heart of hearts, it's not the right move for you.
I am so excited to announce that we just opened our brand new program, the Elevated Salon Owner Collective, to beta testers. If you want to build a salon that makes you feel fulfilled, passionate, while bringing you freedom and flexibility to your life, the collective is for you. This is the best time to join because we have some special bonuses, and when you join as a beta tester, you get to join the collective for $300 off. We're only allowing 20 motivated salon owners to join, so visit opulentbeautypro.com/join the collective to join the waitlist to have your best year yet.
So you can start small, have a couple of practice phrases that you say. I think, start to find like-minded people. If you're going to follow people on social media, start to find like-minded people and start to surround yourself with people who have the same mindset. The other big piece that I see, and it's not to say go out and get a whole new bunch of friends, but just be cognizant of some of the influences that you have in your life. Because if you're hanging out with a group of people at work that are constantly negative and constantly, not believing that, they can do greater things, then that's going to influence you as well. So you actively seek out kind of those cheerleaders for yourself.
I think too, stepping outside of your industry is really important, not just keeping your focus on, just people in the salon industry or the corporate world, but really expanding on your horizons. So give a little definition of, or an explanation, I should say, of what you think the myth of having it all is.
I think that when people think about it, they think about, and my program's called the Balance Plan. So, but what I encourage people is what you define through that is what balance means to you. So when people think they're going to have it all, they think that it's everything that they've ever wanted or they ever want at this point in time, and it's going to be a pie, and that pie is going to be cut in 6 or 8 equal slices, and each slice is going to be perfect of what they want. They're going to have family, they're going to have their career, they're going to have fitness, whatever they're prioritizing in there. And what the myth of that is that, nobody's perfect. And the vision that you have of having it all in that perfect pie, you're automatically setting yourself up for failure. Because 1 month, that family pie can be half the pie. If you got stuff going on, or you're caring for aging parents, or a kid gets sick or something like that. And then, the next month you can dial that back and, you have a bigger sense of the slice of the pie that's dedicated to work or, one of your other interests. And that's really where, you can have it all. Like I said, it's just going to be your prioritization, your timing, and your ability to be flexible throughout that process. And if you kind of have the tools in place then to know nothing's forever, this is a situation I'm in right now, and I'm going to get through this, and then I'm going to kind of flex back and reprioritize and keep moving forward. Everybody has this idea that you're going to start at A, it's going to be a straight diagonal line trajectory up to B, and then that's when all the fulfillment and happiness happens. But the line is a little bit squigglier than that. As you're going from A down to B, you're going to have some dips along the way. And the fulfillment and the happiness is found by the individual moments that you're having throughout those time. And the fulfillment is the confidence in, the few things that you're working toward, and you're enjoying life now, and you're working to sort towards some things. And that's really where the fulfillment happens.
One, I think this really resonates with me as a salon owner, as an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a wife. And it really feels like juggling every single day. And it's like you're picking the thing that needs the most attention, or the fire that has to, that's burning the biggest and has to be put out the fastest. And I think a lot of people feel like they're failing because they don't feel that balance, and they always feel like they're chasing or, solving problems. So I love that you touch base. And I think this is something too that a lot of people in general really struggle with, is that they're always focused on the future. Well, when I get this in the future, well, when I accomplish this, or when this happens for me in my career, when in reality, you're missing out on all of the things that are in the moment that can give you those feelings, those most desired feelings, that feeling of fulfillment. And it's literally there every single day with you, in front of you. So how do you get people to take off that laser focus on just the future, and to really be in the moment and really focus on finding the fulfillment in the day to day?
Yeah. So I think you're kind of back to living where you're at, right? And it sounds really simple, but it's not easy. And it's because of the expectations that we're putting on ourselves with all the should. I should be doing this. I should be doing it this way. And when you finally just be honest with yourself and you say, okay, this is my current situation, and this is really what I want right now, the amount of relief and happiness that you open yourself up to is kind of amazing. And I'll give you an example for myself. So as part of my career, I did an overseas assignment. We lived for 3 years in Europe, and we moved back to the US for a million good reasons, right? And I knew that people that did international assignments were seen more favorably, right? Like it was a better, you had better career options, because if you were mobile and you could move all over the place. And I knew we weren't moving until my kids finished high school. We had made that decision. We had made that agreement. I was so worried to say that out loud at work, because every time I would hear of a job, I would kind of go through these mental gymnastics of, well, maybe it would be possible, or I don't know, like it sounds like a great job. And then I'd kind of dance around having conversations at work with people. And the day that I finally just said, enough's enough, and I started just saying out loud, we've committed to having our kids finish school in the US. It was like the amount of relief I felt in that moment and in that time period was unbelievable. Like I had no idea, as it was constantly going on, the amount of stress I was constantly putting myself through. And the reality of the situation was, it didn't matter. It didn't matter one bit. I had plenty of other opportunities, because I started to then look around in the present and see, oh, I could do that, or I could do this, or, I have a great opportunity over here where I could, kind of do a stretch assignment and learn, do more development. And so by being constantly focused and not really being honest with myself, I was, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was never going to get off that hamster wheel. And so that's really what I would encourage people to do is, how you're maximizing your current situation. Before everybody has goals, it's great to have goals, and you want to, start to take steps now to what you want to build for the future. But you're right. When the future becomes your present, that's when the anxiety just goes off the charts.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I grabbed from what you just shared was honoring yourself and letting go of stories and outside expectations. I think so many of us create these stories in our minds of, oh, I need to be a certain way or do a certain thing or have a certain availability. And this happens a lot with us in, the salon industry with, we're in the service business, clients.
Sure.
And, but when you let go of those stories and you honor yourself and your truth, that it's freeing, and there's so much fulfillment in that alone. That was a very powerful story. So what does it look like to work with you, and what does the process look like when somebody is in search of finding fulfillment and really getting clear on what matters most to them and really trying to find balance in life?
Yeah. So I do individual coaching. So the first thing that will happen in either of the things I'm going to talk about is you can sign up for a free call on my website, and we can kind of talk through what the biggest challenges you're having and kind of what led you to me to begin with. And we'll kind of figure out what the best path forward is. I'm kicking off a mastermind in March, and that's a bi-monthly call. Small group call where we'll tackle some of these topics and, kind of form a supportive community around one another as people are facing some of these challenges with overwhelm and on their journey to fulfillment. I also do individual coaching, and what that looks like is a weekly coaching call one-on-one where we'll walk step by step through your individual situation. We'll start with some of the things we talked about today in working through kind of making sure that you're comfortable knowing that you have a choice in your direction and where you are. And we'll get really clear on your current situation. And then we'll kind of take a step-by-step through what your shorter and longer term goals are. And through that all help you create the structure around your version of balance. So, what does your balance plan look like? And, there's tools along the way to help you do that and help you navigate through things like setting boundaries and goal setting and what type of goal setting works for you. Some people get really, really overwhelmed by long-term goals, and, smaller, shorter term goals are better. Some people need that North Star to move forward and to start, getting motivated on their journey. So that's basically what the process looks like.
I love that. And what are maybe two tangible steps that my audience can do today to help create change in their lives before they make the decision to possibly sign up with you?
Yeah. So I think there's two big things that you can do. I think the first thing that if you're kind of stuck in that cycle of overwhelm, I think start to think about one thing that you can take off your plate. Just one thing, and it doesn't have to be forever. It can be, you can have somebody walk your dog for the next few weeks, or you can have somebody come in and organize your photo albums if that's what's stressing you out, like the clutter in your office, or have someone come in and organize your office. Think of one thing that you can get off your plate. And like I said, it doesn't have to be forever. It can be for a couple of weeks. So that's number one. And I think number two is take time for yourself every day. I don't care if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10 minutes, you need to shut your brain off a little bit. And that could be, I like to do a 5-minute meditation, and I usually do it midday because that's usually about the time where I start to get a little bit nutty with my head and kind of going in a bunch of different directions. But it can be, sitting on your front porch for 5 minutes and just watching cars go by. It shouldn't be social media. It shouldn't be any kind of, intense activity. It really should be just something that you're doing for yourself. It could be doodling. It could be journaling. It could be, like I said, just sitting and watching cars go by for 5 minutes. It's a small thing, but it's your gateway to understanding how the recharge is going to give you energy. It's a little bit counterintuitive because what happens a lot of times is, I say, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. But what ends up happening is then you can get so mentally tired that you're not accomplishing everything you want during the day either. And if you start taking that time to recharge, you're going to fill your tank back up and give yourself energy to probably be more productive in the end.
I'm all about delegating things out and taking things off of your plate. And that's one thing that I'm going to challenge everyone who's listening today is to choose that one thing and completely remove it and give it to somebody else, no matter what you have to sacrifice to be able to afford that. If you have to give up your coffee or whatever it is, But that really is so powerful for your mental health and your productivity. Removing that one thing can put you back into a calm state instead of being in a reactive state where you're just completely shut down and you're not getting anything done because of like one simple task. And then I also love the recharging. Nobody has time. Nobody has time.
Nope.
We all have to make time. And when you make yourself a priority and make it a priority to recharge and really, like you said, take a moment for yourself. For me, it's working out. I have to work out every day. I take an hour every single day in the morning.
Awesome.
Put my headphones on, completely just zone out, and I'm good for the day. So everyone has that one thing that is going to fill their battery up. You just have to find what that is, right?
Absolutely.
Yours is
Absolutely.
meditation, which is great too. I mean, I wish I could meditate more, but it's hard for me. It's hard for me. My mind is very, very, it's always active.
Yeah. And that's why I only do 5-10 minutes. I mean, it's not like a super intense, right? Like I'm not, but I do find that just kind of sitting down and turning my brain off for that 5 minutes. Like I said, for me, midday is when I start to dip. So that's usually when I try to target it. I do believe in movement too. I do believe that the power of movement is very underestimated in terms of how it makes you feel. So yeah, I second that as well.
Tell everyone how and where they can find you.
So you can find me on my website, lauriegery.com, or on Instagram or TikTok at Laurie Gery. Super simple.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here today. I think everything that you shared is something that people can absolutely utilize. And thank you. And I hope that some of my listeners connect with you.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah.